Hey, welcome back. This is part 2. Last week we had part 1. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen that, go watch that, but here's part 2. And that's the beauty of our God, is he wants to hear those. He's not burdened by the little, trivial things that you bring up with him. It's a relationship. It's not a, someone way up there and we have to plea for whatever we want. We get to talk to him as a friend.
We can have confidence that he loves us,
Mm-hmm.
right? That he loves us and that he wants our very best, because this isn't just a blind faith, right? It's not a you do you, I'll do me,
Yeah.
and either way is good. It's like, no, our faith is rooted in Jesus' death and resurrection. Like the historical fact of Jesus dying and rising again from the grave. And that event was all about God entering our world so that we could be reconciled to him. It is the ultimate expression of love, that the only innocent person to ever walk the face of the earth suffered and died, experienced the judgment of God that I deserved, so that I could then be reconciled. So I can look at the historical facts and root my faith in that, and then expand out so that when I do have these doubts, when I do have these questions, when I am beginning, going through something that's maybe shaking my faith a little bit, or, causing me to wonder, like Job did, David did at times, psalmists, looking at him going, where are you? I've got something I look back on. It's like, okay, stop. Is there any question God loves me? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. There's no question, because of this event in history right here. Mm-hmm. This proves all of that.
Yeah.
So now, because of that, okay, this is really hard. This is a painful thing I'm going through. I've got all these questions, but I can be confident in that. And I can trust that God will see me through this, even though all of my questions may not get answered when I want them to, or maybe even never.
Mm-hmm. Or right? Even the way I want it answered to.
Or the way I want it answered, right?
Yeah. But you look back through history, and the older you get and the more experience you have being a Christian, you can look back at those little things and say, okay, God, I trusted you through that. You got me through that. Like for example, like the dentist, it's like the worst for me.
Oh yeah.
Right. I can't, like, needles with, because I faint with the needles and things in my mouth and being numb. Yeah. All of that is it's a little struggle for me, but it's a struggle nonetheless.
Sure.
Right. And if I had to get a cavity filled a few months ago, and that was tough for me.
Man, that's
right.
Feeling that drill in your
right, and like trying
it's
not
awful.
to faint the entire time. It's awful, but I was able to trust God through that.
Yeah,
and obviously I lived. That was a bit of an irrational fear that I had, but I am here alive today.
There we go.
Cavity filled. But I trusted him in that, so then I can build my trust a little more, right? And through that experience, I can look back and say, wow, God got me through all of that. I can't do that. He got me through all of that. And when you can change that perspective, like you were saying, you have these doubts, but you can bounce it off of the truth.
Right.
As opposed to bouncing it off of what you feel, which changes every day.
Right. Yeah. And where people talk about doubts, and often just in the conversation, it's tied to some academic almost issue, creation, Trinity, whatever. But I've found, my experience a lot of times, when you go a little deeper, when you have that conversation and you continue to explore,
Mm-hmm.
like, what is it that's like, you say it's this thing, but tell me more, right? And you just continue to kind of get into it with people. There's usually something painful underneath that, you know. The academic, not that it's illegitimate. It's 100% legitimate. But usually that's not the reason behind the reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually something behind that that's like, there's this painful thing happened.
There's always a story behind every doubt.
It seems like it. It does seem like it. And that's where really it takes just caring about people, showing them that you care. If you're trying to help someone walk through doubt, walk through this question, showing them that you care, that their hurt matters, that it even matters to God, even though He might not have answered their prayers or their desires the way they wanted. Right? When you lose someone you love, when someone you love is sick, suffering, there's no good answer to that. It leads to all kinds of questions and all kinds of doubts. But you don't ever really get an answer to that. You know, you have a chance, like God often works through it. You may not see it in the moment. You might take years before you look back and say, I see how God was working in that. That was the hardest time of my life, but I see what He was doing. And that's where I find that having that historical truth behind our faith is so necessary. Because when you're going through something terrible and you don't know what God is going to do, how it's going to play out. You don't know if it's going to play out well, or you don't know if it's going to be like play out bad, because that happens. If you got that to hold on to, it's like, okay, what's the essential? Like, let's peel it, let's pull it back and remind myself, okay, what is the essential of all this? Christ died for me. He died for me. He died for you. Died for anybody who would put their trust in Him. He died for any and all who would want Him. And that doesn't change.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't change with my circumstances. It doesn't change with how, like, God's love for me doesn't change.
Doesn't even change with culture.
Doesn't change with culture. Culture can move culture can and does move all over the place.
Yeah.
That is our rock.
Also,
that's
even with time, because with time, different generations come, different generations change things. But even through all that, God is still the same.
Yeah. Yep.
No matter the technology. That's a big one today.
Yep.
So when we're in the midst of those doubts, what are some of those practical steps we can take to finding the answers, or at least getting resolution?
Yeah. One of the most, I think it's neglected a lot today, but because it's just not a natural part of our culture anymore. But it's so valuable, is to find someone older, more mature in the faith, who's been through stuff, and just ask to just spend time with them. Say, I got questions. Can we go through some? Can we talk about this stuff? And just find someone who is open to investing in you, and build that relationship with multiple people like that. You know, just make that a practice. Finding people who can pour into you. You know, it's a weird. I always thought that was a weird phrase, pour into someone. But you know, just the idea of investing in them.
That's why discipleship groups are so important and so
key.
valuable.
So valuable. You know, where you can just talk about this stuff. It's like, man, I don't understand this. What do you guys think about this? What have you found helpful in Scripture to help you think this through, and just talk about
Or like,
stuff.
hey, I found this
Yeah.
week throughout my Bible reading. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, yeah, so good,
Yeah.
so good. So that's a very like tangible thing to do. Another is, man, it seems like it might sound trite, but just reading more, reading not just reading the Bible. That's number one. First of all, reading and studying the Bible, getting some good commentaries that'll help you understand what's being said in this.
Understand the culture and the language and
Yep. Understand the culture, the language, what the reason was that the author was writing this book or this letter or this gospel. Like what was the drive behind it? Because they all had reasons for writing. They weren't just like doing something just for the fun of it. There was a purpose behind it. So you start to learn those things, and the pieces start coming together. You start connecting dots that you didn't even realize were there. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I never connected those two things before. Now I see how this relates to this.
Yeah,
Like how what Paul is saying here ties back to what Jesus was teaching here, ties back to this Old Testament passage here. It's just like boom, boom, boom. You know?
Yeah. Even in the midst of like going through your reading, you might even unlock some doubts that you didn't even think you had.
Absolutely. So doubt's fun to me. It's sort of like the negative okay, that's too strong. Not the negative version, but kind of like the little bit more negative version of curiosity, right? It's just we got questions. So whether it's a doubt, it's like, man, I don't know if I can buy that. I need to figure this out a little bit. Or, man, I'm really kind of intrigued by this. It's the same drive, right? You want to find some answers. You want to learn some new things and start to figure out, well, what's going on with this particular topic or
I feel
whatever.
like the difference is what we do with it afterwards of that initial like,
Yeah.
what is this about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, both of them are driving you to the same. It should drive you to the same work and the same process. Doubts or curiosity should end up in the same place. It's just the doubt is initially a hurdle you have to get over, whereas curiosity is like a inward drive, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and about what you do afterwards, and tying in that passage in James,
Yeah.
you have to be open to it,
Yeah.
right? Because if you don't want to listen to it, you're not going to understand.
Yeah.
But if you're praying and saying, God, I don't understand, like I don't believe, help me.
Yeah.
Help me understand.
That's one of my favorite passages. Where the guy brought his son who was having demonized, and it's like throwing himself down into fires and stuff like that. He's like brings him to Jesus, but Jesus is not there. He's up on the mountain with the guys for the transfiguration. I think this is the context. But anyway, the other apostles who are around are trying to cast the demon out and it's not working. And Jesus comes down. He's like, "Did you not have faith?" And the apostles are like, "Oh." Jesus cast the demon out, or before that, he's talking to the dad, and the dad's like, and this is like the best line. He's like, "I believe, help my unbelief." I love that, because it's like, I do believe, but I struggle to believe.
Yeah.
How just honest is that? It's like, I really do believe, but man, I got questions. I struggle about this
It's also
stuff.
like humbling.
Yeah. It's just so real. And it's exactly the right thing to say. I think the thing that we need to be honest about our questions, but then pray and pursue answers. Help my unbelief.
Yeah.
I want to grow in my faith. I want to grow in my confidence that you are who you are, that that God is who he is, and that he will do the things, all the things that he's promised throughout the scriptures, that his character as it's revealed there is 100% accurate and
Yeah.
true.
Because what are some of the consequences that we have when we don't really try to find a way of solving our doubts? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, we've seen lots of people just walk away from the faith, right? I mean, lots of people have just been like, I'm not interested. You know, I've got these questions. I'm not interested in finding answers, or maybe the only answers that I've heard so far don't satisfy me, and I'm out. You know, uh, it could. I mean, that's like the extreme. It could just hinder us for a while. You know, it might just like throw us off, and I mean, I'm sure I mean, I know I've had experiences like that, times like that, where uh, it's just like I'm not walking the way I need to be walking,
Yeah.
you know, and I've allowed some aspect of either I've accepted the doubt, or I've in a way selfishly embraced it because it allowed me
Allows you to stay in that place.
to stay in that place, or to
Yeah.
go down a path that I know I really shouldn't be going down, or whatever. You know, it's like this selfish area where I can, you know, be short tempered, or
Yeah.
a little bit, you know, my way or the highway, or whatever your version of it is. It allows me to do that because you know, I'm not interested in that moment in actually finding an answer. I'm only really interested in justifying what I want when I want it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Now,
Yeah.
we've talked about a little bit of what doubts are, how to approach them, but how can we approach somebody to help them go through their doubts?
Man, that is like exactly what youth ministry wants to do. Like, that is, if you were to boil it down, you know, on top of simply sharing the gospel and introducing people to Jesus, like, that's number one always.
Yeah.
But to be able to walk with students through this time of shifting from them kind of growing up in the faith, if they grew up in the faith, or being introduced to the faith for the first time and moving into making it their own. Man, that's walking through that time. That is walking through doubts, because there's all kinds of questions and doubts. And my answer to that is, man, lots of patience, lots of encouragement. Man, to encourage people, say, man, that is a great question. Even if it might not be the best question in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you get goofy questions. That's all right.
And having honesty and saying, you know what? I don't know. Let's dig into it.
If yeah, that might be one of the best things. Asking more questions. It's like, what led you, like, why are you asking that question? Like, what's your thought there?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? You know, and getting them to kind of explore the questions themselves, to even express the question, because they may not have ever verbalized it, right? Something about when you verbalize a question, it kind of brings some solidity to it, makes it a little more concrete.
Yeah.
You know, and so just getting them to express what that is, and then saying, all right, let's dig into this. If you have the answer, maybe you don't share that with them right now. You know, have what you think is the answer. Maybe sometimes the best thing is not to tell them what it is. It's to say, all right, let's explore that. Let's dig into that a little bit. Um, uh, Sean McDowell. This was another great idea of his. He's something he did with someone's like, why don't you um, go home and on your phone, just or your Bible, whatever you're using, search for all the times where that particular thing shows up. Just put that in. And then let's just start going through all the major passages that talk about that topic, whatever it is. You know, in his case, he was talking about it was a student who was struggling with sexuality, his sexual identity. He's like, all right, let's just dig in to what the Bible says, what it doesn't say, and explore that together. Because there's another topic where there's a lot of cultural baggage on top of it, you know, and it's important to understand, well, what does the Bible really teach about this, and be honest about it. Don't dance around it. If it makes a strong statement, which I think it does make some strong statements on sexuality, don't soften that. But let's also figure out what culture, church culture, the culture at large, what has been kind of absorbed into the snowball as it rolled down the hill, right? Let's see if we can start picking some of that stuff out and just explore it together.
Yeah.
And see what you come to, right? Because I may have what I think are all the answers to these questions, but that doesn't help them. They need to be thinking about it and come to the answers themselves as they dig into the Word, talk to other people, and work through it. It can be a long, tiring process.
Sometimes you don't know it until you live it out.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Till you search, really search it out for yourself.
Yeah, and even then, sometimes if you tell them the answer, it doesn't satisfy that itch that they had with that doubt. It still doesn't solve the question because they didn't have the chance to like actually invest into finding it out.
Well, because ultimately, I'm just another person,
Yeah.
right? Giving you my opinion on this topic, right? And anything that I say, they absolutely should be double checking that and going back and doing their own research and saying, well, is he off base on this thing? Is he out of his mind? Well, like what? Why? Maybe I've earned the trust for them to listen to me and take what I'm saying, with some weight. Even if I have, I could be wrong, right? I could be. I don't think I am. I wouldn't tell you something that I obviously am wrong, that I know I'm wrong about. I wouldn't tell someone that, but I could be. And if I don't know, I hope I would be humble enough to say, I don't know. I don't know. Let's look at this together and see what we can come up with.
I guess being an example of what to do in that doubt can help someone in that doubt. Because if you spew out the answers, it's like, well, how do I know that? Like, how do I find that out for myself? How do I live that out?
Yeah. Mr. Know-It-All over here seems to have all the answers, but,
exactly.
It's not really helping me, with my questions.
Yeah.
Right? And so, it's more... walking with someone who has doubts is really... Oh, man. It's so important, but it's just acknowledging it's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a dumb question. Even if you might think it's a little bit of a dumb question, it's not to them.
No.
They wouldn't have asked it. They had the trust in you to share a question they have, right? And trust that you're not going to brush them off. You're not going to make fun of them. You're not going to laugh that they've got this question, right? And so, and so that's what we got to do. We got to honor that person who honored us by trusting us enough to come to us with something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So walk with them. You know,
Be patient about
be
it.
patient about it.
Be honest.
Be honest. Do the work. Like,
Yeah.
go home, find some resources, start doing some study on it, and come back with some maybe some information, maybe some suggestions that they could, read through or watch or whatever. Come back with some good questions because now you've done your work. Like, it's work, and it should be work. You know, we shouldn't just like wing it.
Yeah, no.
That doesn't honor anybody.
No.
You know, we shouldn't just wing it. We should be putting in some real work to try and help someone, to invest in someone, to help ground them in their faith.
Especially because even with the youth, they know when you're not being genuine about it.
Yeah.
And that's just going to instead of helping them resolve their doubts, it's just going to drive them away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't help anyone. You know? Might stroke your ego a little bit, but that's usually not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, I think you've answered a lot of my questions, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Always fun.
Mhm.
Always fun to talk about this stuff. I love these kinds of things and thinking through it. And, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't have it all figured out either. We're just trying to, we're all trying to figure out, all right, man, how can we do this better together?
Yeah.
Help one another through with the questions we have and they have. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
It's been a lot of fun, and we'll see you next time, I guess.
Awesome.
And we'll see you
So
next
there'll be
time.
a next time.
There will be a next time,
For
Lord
sure.
willing.
Wonderful.
Lord willing. We hope to have you on with your lots of wisdom.
Well, I don't know about that, but I got lots of things to say.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.